For those who are wondering, apparently about 28 hours is the limit for Teams meeting.
Okay, I'll let everybody get back in here for a minute.
We had some people stay logged in overnight, Lisa. So that Teams meeting was going on for like 28 hours.
Okay, well, that's a problem.
Well, it's good to know where the limit is and that we've surpassed it.
28 hours.
Yes, you did.
Who was asking that question again, so I make sure that I address it?
That was Amanda Wolf from Hoosier Updates.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me.
Amanda, are you here yet?
I know I'm waiting. That's it.
I'm letting people in as fast as I
Okay,
can.
she's in. She's
Oh.
in. So most people know this anyway. As far as IHCDA online access,
Jan?
you can always request it by sending an email to claims@ihcda .in.gov. Let me think about my email address. You can send it there. Your physical director, anyone who is an admin in your online portal can also grant you that access. What we have seen in the past,
Okay, bye.
there might be a predecessor who
Who's
you were
letting
using their
in?
login. Can we mute people, Thomas?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
muting
you're
people.
working on that.
You know what, Lisa? I'm going to mute all, and then you can unmute yourself.
That's fine. Okay, that sounds a whole lot better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Felt like I was in the internet, not on the internet. Okay, so I'll state it all. The address. What happens is when you go into the online system and you go to new user and you fill out the information, usually someone within your organization is an organizational admin and they do that for you. However, if your predecessor leaves and the only email address you have is their email address, I can see how they might train you to use that. We truly prefer, and I am certain that perhaps a fiscal person or an auditor on your end would also prefer that everyone have their own login for that system so that you can always tell who is moving what and claiming what and all for all of that reason. So if you do not have someone there that is an organizational admin, you can email me directly at lditchley@ihcda.in.gov. It's pretty simple name, L Ditchley, just my first initial and last name. Or you can email claims@ihcda.in.gov and just say, hey, how do I request access? I can send you a link. But for all new users, you can log on to the online portal and there is a new user button right next to the username box. And if you just fill out that information, once you do that, it queues up in the claims inbox that you need access. And again, we really do prefer that everyone have their own login name. What you need to remember, and the system is not super user friendly just in this instance. Once an email address is used, it cannot be used again. So if you're using like clerk at such city's government, the next clerk can't use that same email address because it's already affiliated with your name. So if you do need help, please let me know and we'll get you set up and we try to get it turned around within 24 hours for you.
Cool. Thanks for that, Lisa. And hopefully that might help if there's anyone else who's having trouble with ICDA online access. Like I said, I would certainly like to see as many managers have at least viewing access as possible. All right, Elaine, you had your hand up, and I told you that you would be after Amanda.
So as I was listening to you talk about the transmittals when they come back, and some of these transmittals have hellacious changes on them. And you're wanting us to update, which is understandable, to the right account number. And our vendors are checking those account numbers. Are you expecting us to contact the vendors individually on each one of these to say, Do you have proof of this, or are we contacting the client to have proof of it? Or is it just a matter of us looking at our documentation and going, this is what was submitted? Like, for example, right now, I might have gotten an address change and I just put in there that account number was updated. Client's address will be updated when new application is received in the fall. Is that permissible? Because otherwise we're going to be
Yeah.
going back crazy. I mean, I get
So-
what you're trying to do, but I
Mhm.
also want to be cognizant of my time too, because I've spent a lot of time on just these CARES Act transmittals.
Sure. So, and I mean, obviously the CARES Act transmittals are their own beasts. Anytime you have a batch claim to all of your applicants for the entire year, it's going to be crazy. So what I'm going to be communicating to the vendors during the webinar, so I can be completely transparent with you, is whenever there is a change in something where they're changing something that is really big on the transmittal, if it's a matter of transposed numbers, that's one thing, and you can usually just take a look at your file real quick and be like, oh yeah, the 0 and the 9 were transposed. That's fine. If there's like something where the address changed or the billing name changed, or it's a completely different account number, I'm going to actually also put the responsibility on the vendor, to if you're making a major change to these transmittals, send the agency the documentation to support that. And we do want to do our due diligence. I certainly have had situations before where apparently an applicant, I guess, had moved out of a house or an apartment, and someone else moved in and opened an account number. Well, so when I sent the transmittal, the vendor corrected it, and they changed the billing name and the account number, and the billing name was someone who's not in the household. So I, reached out and determined that, like, yeah, that client had moved, and if I had allowed that change to go through that the vendor was asking me for, we would have been giving a benefit to someone who hadn't even applied, let alone that we knew that they would have qualified. So we do need to do our due diligence, but my intention is absolutely to take as much of the burden off of you as possible. I would like to have that be part of the vendor's responsibility, that if they're going to make a major change to the transmittal, they need to back it up.
Typically, our changes are one or the other, or a married name, and you can see the first name stayed the same, and
Yeah.
we can always require that marriage change name piece in the fall if they should reapply for at least this bundle. But
if it's reasonable, if it's reasonable and defensible. So I think that's where we're coming from. If it is defensible, if HHS were to decide to monitor Indiana and they pull that file, if it's defensible and it's consistent with what you've done, don't keep it as simple as possible while also showing that we do due diligence. It can be a
Right.
line. It can be a line to walk sometimes. It can be a tightrope. I do get that.
And if the vendor's looking at, because the transmittal does show billing name and client name, and they didn't change the client name. So that
Yeah.
to me says that client's still there. We just have the account in somebody else's name with a different account number. Typically, it's not both though, unless there's something crazy, but
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, as long as it's within reason and it's defensible, I don't want you to drive yourself crazy. That's not my intention here.
late.
You and me both. But yeah, I am going to be putting that request to the vendors at the webinar, that if they're going to be making a major change that goes beyond just like, oh, this is the wrong last name, like the the person has different documentation within their file where they're both Mary Smith and Mary Rogers, and the billing name was actually Rogers, but you accidentally had it as Smith. They changed that. That's one thing. If they're like, oh, this is actually in the name of John Peters, and like that, and there is no John Peters in the household, that's a bigger problem. So on those larger ones, I'm going to be asking them as part of their process to not just change those, but send you the backup on that. And then you'll be able to see, well, they just sent a bill for a John Peters, and I don't have a John Peters in this household. What's going on here? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Does it make you feel at least a little bit better?
Maybe a little.
Okay.
Hey,
Sometimes it's
Thomas,
all we can hope for. And
someone had, oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Someone had a question earlier about payments or something, and no one was here to answer that. Do you remember in the last session about, do they show all the payments at one time in the email, or I don't even remember who asked the question.
So I
If
see one here in the chat that says, how is it determined who the transmittal paid receipt emails are sent to? And that's from Laura Collins. Does that
no,
sound like?
it was previous to that. Those
I'm
transmittal payment emails in DMS, if you need that updated to who the transmittal like payment notification goes to, you can also send that request to Sam, Alexander, or myself, either one, and we can go in and update that and put them as the primary. We do have to mark a primary on that. So if there's like 4 of you, who's the one that really needs it the most? But unfortunately, like, I mean, it should send them all, but I think they get the initial, if that makes sense. If you need it updated, let me know. But I think it was before that. I can't remember. And I know that Brad may not have been on here at that time because I thought it was during the afternoon session earlier, but I'll go back and see if I can find it.
well,
Thanks.
I just scrolled way up and saw a bunch of questions that I apparently had missed while I was presenting. So sorry, I'm trying to
No,
read
you're
through
good.
this. So apparently people were having difficulty seeing slides, but then it popped up. Okay. Ingrid says, can a supervisor's time be charged outreach and eligibility when they process apps? And how about QA time? No, unfortunately not, Ingrid. If it's someone who's in a supervisory role, that is always going to be admin. That is a federal requirement. Even if you're engaging in non-supervisory activities at the time, that goes along with the job title and role. Sarah Drury said, will surveys be a requirement for the Assurance 16? Can we instead provide a brochure of energy education information, hand out the kits to the public at events or through face-to-face contact, especially if these kits were purchased from prior year's funding? Okay, surveys are a best practice. They are not a requirement. So that handles that part of that question. As far as handing out to the public at events or through face-to-face contact, so the difficult thing there is if you're just going to count straight staff time, staff spent, 1 hour distributing these, that would be one thing. But if you are going to be submitting a household applicant list, so part of the difficulty with that is that you would need to ensure that that the households that you're claiming are LIHEAP eligible, because ultimately, since these are coming out of LIHEAP funds, these specific services do need to be for LIHEAP eligible households. So that's kind of the difficulty with just handing them out en masse at mass events like that. I don't want to discourage that kind of thing. I just, at that point, I mean, it can get into some iffy territory from the point of view of federal requirements at that point. But I am happy to help brainstorm ways, ways that can work. And so yes, Sarah, we can talk online or offline about that later. Ingrid asks, can we still claim $25 per household for energy education provided? Yes, Ingrid, that has not gone away. So again, same caveat applies, is $25 per household as long as it is a LIHEAP eligible household. But yes. Linda Martin asked the same question, so same answer there. And then Sarah, can I please verify that we will have 4.5% for outreach for both ARPA and regular budget? Yes, indeed. 4.5% based on award amount, not on obligations. Okay. Scrolling down now. Here's the mass exodus. All right. So Laura, did you get the answer to your question about the emails?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. Julie Wilson, I would like to know what agencies have in place for checks and balances with their transmittals and claims. Is checking ICD online for approvals, etc., in their normal workflow? I've had issues when a transmittal apparently and accidentally paid twice, and I had to figure that out, and for when claims weren't approved, but I had no way of knowing unless IHCDA alerted me about it because I don't normally follow up on every transmittal in IHCDA online. Should I be? And then I had to fumble around in IHCDA online to figure it out. And I'm still not sure if I received all the claim receipt emails, and there was plenty of back and forth about that with IHCDA early on last year, trying to figure out why I wasn't receiving them. It sounds like Julie's question mostly is to her peers about their processes. And so I'm going to open that up to the floor. I will say, Julie, as far as the transmittal paying twice, I'm pretty sure that that specific situation was due to an issue with EAP Connect, where one of the other enhancements, I think, overwrote a protection on the submit to fiscal button. So it used to be that once submit to fiscal button was pushed, it was grayed out, so you couldn't push it again. You couldn't accidentally double click on it. And that protection got removed. I will say, as soon as that came to our attention, Brad and his team got right on it and got that fix put in right away. But in the meantime, I think the worst we had is, I think we had one agency who had one of their claims submit 4 times and get paid out 4 times. But hopefully that should not be an issue anymore, that specific.
So this is Julie, and you're right that was the issue, but it was more the follow-up that had me so concerned, because, I'm fairly new at this, and before I became the EAP manager this time last year, I knew IHCDA Online existed, but I hadn't ever been in it. I didn't know what all it did. And so, to have to kind of figure that out mostly on my own with some help from you guys, because I was like, please help. I have no idea what to do. It was intimidating. And I hate just totally not knowing what I'm doing. So it's stuff like that I wish I had a better familiarity with IHCDA Online, and just wondered, like you said earlier, if someone else in the network can kind of guide me on what's normal when dealing with IHCDA Online. Thanks.
Julie, do you have a partner's manual?
I do. Tom provided me with one when I had reached out about one of these
Okay.
issues.
Okay. Okay. Just making sure. If you ever have any questions or you just want a tutorial, Julie, we did that in person when we used to do this. We used to do that as part of the training, and it honestly totally like slipped my mind this year to even say something about it. But if you want that, Julie, I'd be more than happy to set that up with you and we
I
can
would
just
love
walk
that.
through. No problem. I would do
That's
anything I
exactly
can to
what
help
I
make it
need
better
and
for
would
you.
help me. Some
Okay.
interaction instead of just reading a manual where I'm still afraid to touch anything in
Sure.
IHCDA online. Okay, thanks.
Sure. Yeah. Just email me and we can set up a Teams meeting and I can put it up on the screen and we can walk through it. Okay.
Perfect. I'll do that.
All
Thank you.
right. You're welcome.
So does anyone at any of the subgrantees want to speak to any of Julie's questions in terms of their checks and balances they have in place with in terms of transmittals and claims and checking against ICD online, or following up to make sure that claims have paid out appropriately? Anything like that?
It sounds like our question's more diverse than just that, because a lot of us go through different processes. I have I have a file system where I print out my receipt or my transmittals. They go into a file. I send them to the vendor. They get moved to the next file that says waiting for it to come back from the vendor. From that spot, when I get the stuff back and I submit it to IHCDA, I maintain a file folder for those specifically. And then, but they are kept in the claim receipt dates or the claim receipt number process order, so that when those emails start coming in, I can attach that claim that I've already submitted to IHCDA to the payment email. And then, of course, once it's paid, I double check the amounts and drop it into my vendor file. So I still have a little bit of a paper process for some of this. Not that I liked it, but I swear by it 100%. But it allows me to give somebody a stack of emails or a stack of files if Tom's asking for all of your CARES Act claims. I have the ability to say, I need you to go through this and put these in a spreadsheet for me if I need to. But now with EAP Connect, that might be more of an automated process with maybe a transmittal listing or an Excel spreadsheet, hint, 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 Brad. So that all of those can just be check marked when we have questions like this. That's kind of my layout. I know it's a little longer than what you wanted, but that's the only way I know, because when I go back to that, I haven't got this vendor signature back. If I'm submitting a second group of claims to that same vendor, I'm going to follow up with the vendor on the first claim to say, hey, I haven't gotten this back. Here's a new claim. I need both of these back. And I can reference them at the same time. So sorry to be so wordy, but there you go.
Elaine, that sounds a lot like what I used to do. I actually had separate filing cabinets when I would move from one filing cabinet to the other once it reached a certain point, and plus I had an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah. Julie probably remembers my separate filing cabinets. There was a method to the madness, I think.
We may still be mad, but it's okay.
Exactly. Well, it sounds like this also might be a good discussion point, at least for a sidebar discussion, maybe at the next roundtable. Maybe not the next roundtable, because I kind of have an idea of mostly what should be discussed there, but I'll see if I can squeeze that in. Just so we can have people prepare more to be able to answer more in depth to your questions, Julie. All right, what else do we have? Yep, Pam, you hit the nail on the head there.
Does anybody have any questions regarding claims? No.
All right. Well, I could have us sit here for another 8 minutes, or I could just say that it looks like I think Brad is here, and so we can just move into the general Q&A session for the day. If anyone has any questions about EAP Connect or about ARPA that haven't already been addressed, or if anyone has any lingering questions on claims, budgets, transmittals, oh my.
This is Julie, and I have a question for
Yeah.
Brad. So I just heard back from Rowing that EAP Connect doesn't currently print out non-at-risk household labels for mailing. Stuff like that, can I still use RIA as long as it gets me what I need? Because I know it will print those non-at-risk households.
Yeah, for a report like that, I wouldn't be worried. You can still use RIA, and we'll get that on the list of an enhancement.
Okay, thanks.
I see Stacy has her hand up.
My question goes back to the ARCA. So for the example you gave with the household whose furnace wasn't operable, if they get it fixed and come back, at that point, would they still be eligible for the rearage since they're coming back after the fact because they got their furnace fixed?
That's a great question. So I think the way the policy is written is that we're determining their eligibility at the time of application, and they would still be paying on that same bill. So as far as the way the policy is written, if you're taking it from a very literal standpoint, then yes, once you're able to release the benefit, you're able to release the benefit for which they would have been eligible. It is worth noting with that specific example, that reconnect amount was $120, which would have been fully covered by the crisis amount with $130 to spare. So in that very specific narrow scenario, they actually still would not be getting the ARPA rearage, but if it was a larger reconnect amount, if it was in excess of 250, then yes, they would be eligible for release of the full $250 crisis plus whatever else is needed to restore that service.
Perfect. Thanks, Thomas.
Absolutely. I saw that there was another comment. Will we still be able to run reports through Izenda? That sounds like a Brad question to me.
Yeah, so the ad hoc reporting tool is still available through the weatherization site and will work. There are some additional fields and tables that have become available as well.
Great. And Elaine, thank you for that. I'm glad that you see things that way. I'm really excited about a lot for this year. And I think that we definitely are moving in the right direction. Rosa had her hand up next, and then there's a question from Pam in the chat. So Rosa?
Yes, I've got two questions.
Okay.
They might be both for Brad. So my first question is, on your early on presentation, you mentioned something about agencies wanting to allocate applications per county, I believe. Unfortunately, I didn't take a good note at that, so what I wrote doesn't make sense to me. Can you clarify that, please?
Sure. So that had to do with the intake queue for the online applications. We've had agencies request the ability to have intake workers focus on just one or two counties rather than all the counties you serve. So there will be a feature where you can actually set up specific counties for an intake worker who's going to do the intake queue for online apps. If you don't do anything, it'll work just like it has the previous year.
Okay, so one county can get only 2 as opposed to the 4 that example you used.
Yeah, so if your agency serves 4 counties and you've got an intake worker that you want to focus on a single county or 2 of those counties, you can actually configure that.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. And my second question is more towards the CARES Act transmittals. I have not ran mine just because of the concern I have that how it's going to run. They're still being broken up as they were in the wintertime, right? With one batch in multiple smaller transmittals.
Yes, works just the same as it has.
I did get a request from NIPSCO if that one batch can be broken up into smaller batches because it seems like it's one huge batch on their end.
So I believe almost everybody's set to 200 claims on a transmittal. So, you know, if you've got 1,000 claims for them, you'll get 5 transmittals in the batch for them. Are they wanting the whole batch number to be small? You know, like instead of getting 5 transmittals in the batch, they want to get 2 batches with one with 3 and one with 2?
Yes, because when I send them through their server or their program, I have to send all 5 at one time. And if I have more than 5, I'm going to have to send all of them at one time because once I send them, that program already acknowledges that batch number. So I cannot send another transmittal with that same number.
Okay. I would say go ahead and run your transmittals. Let's find out how many you have.
Okay.
If you need some tweaking on the batch numbers, we could go in and do that and move a few of them to another batch number.
Okay.
I don't see that as a problem. I'm not sure why it matters on their side, but we can probably do something there.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Looks like Pam has another one for Brad. When will Weatherization get a new and improved database?
So we started that discussion in January of last year, maybe February. And then everybody got sent home and the world crashed and all that. That we're working to resume that conversation and try to get Weatherization moved over to the EAP Connect and CA Connect platform.
And
I agree.
No excuses.
Right now, I think Emily has avoided me because of some water program and some ARPA funding. You know, she hasn't had time to talk. Can't imagine why.
It's not like we have hundreds of millions of dollars coming in or anything like that.
Yeah, and trying to figure out the proper ways to handle it.
Ingrid, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, and mine was in response to Rosa's issue with the transmittals. Brad, I ran all my transmittals at once, and so I ended up with 29 transmittals for NIPSCO, and I dumped them all on their server. But because they all have the same batch number, when she makes a change, she doesn't actually know, or when she has to remove a benefit, she won't know which specific transmittal that was on. She only knows that it was for this one huge batch. So I just want to throw that out there. And so I think Rosa's question wasn't so much separate transmittals as it was to actually run the transmittals as separate batches to make it easier on NIPSCO and not have 29 transmittals with one batch number.
Yeah, that's interesting that they don't know which transmittal it is.
So Ingrid, sorry, a couple of follow-up questions because this is fascinating to me now. So first of all, so you're not emailing these to NIPSCO, you're actually dumping them directly into their servers through like a file transfer or something?
No, it's two steps. We dumped them on their server and I sent them the transmittal and the signature page.
Okay. But then they're actually going by, it sounds like by batch number instead of transmittal number.
Yes, because what happens on her end is, and this is just what I'm reading, is that the transmittals, or that when we dump the transmittals onto their server, she gets an error report. And so if we have a mismatched name, mismatched account number, that shows up on her report, and then she goes in and she makes those corrections with the report, except she doesn't know which transmittal Tom's benefit is on. So yeah, and so she sent, and I offered her to help with whatever I could to make some of those corrections on her end. And so she asked me to help her with errors on page 22 and 23. So that tells you how many error pages she has.
So that's interesting to me, because as we kind of went over earlier, the, you know, and as I think you all know, the transmittal numbers are going to be unique throughout because it goes sequential throughout the entire network. Batch numbers, as far as I know, are generated.
They're not. Yeah, they're per agency. So yeah, so two agencies could send the same batch number to the same vendor the same day if it coincidentally happened.
Yeah, that, man, that is really short-sighted.
Amanda, I see your question that you sent yours and you haven't had a response. It's because I beat you to it. She's still working on mine.
Oh, now I have something to talk to NIPSCO about.
I knew it was you. I knew you were the one that was holding everything up and that took all my time, because I haven't got even an email saying, "Oh, thanks, Amanda, I got them." So
yeah, and so I have to tell you though, NIPSCO at least makes corrections on the transmittals. They do catch if an account is closed. You know, when we have those smaller well, even with this one, you know, they do catch when there are changes in the claims. And so they may still have the batch that's associated with real services and the batch that's associated with Brightpoint, because that has never come up as an issue where they send me the incorrect batch for another agency. So I think there's probably still something that indicates to them which agency that came from.
Yeah, I mean, I you know, we know that there's indicators in the EDI. So I mean, it's still just, if they're using that even in conversation to refer to it, it can lead to problems, even if the computer is handling it correctly. It can definitely lead to human error problems. Well,
we haven't seen those with NIPSCO, but there are some other vendors that you might want to address the whole returning transmittals without corrections.
And we can talk about those offline, because I do want to remind you that this recording is going to be posted.
I was not going to mention anybody by name.
Perfect. All right. Ingrid and Rosa, you both still have your hands up. Is that just I
just haven't taken it down yet.
Perfect. That's what I was trying to find the words for. All right, lots of conversation in the chat, some good sharing. Samantha Pence. So just as a general, because I don't quite have the same kind of relationship with NIPSCO that everyone else has, I want to draw everyone to something that Samantha Pence says in the chat. Samantha Pence from CFS. She's been trying to get NIPSCO to add her to their system for 2 years, and they still have not. She has to send all of hers via email instead of just sending it directly to the server. And of course, there's other chat after that, so I'm not sure if anyone has already addressed Samantha, but if anyone has any tips for her or wants to kind of send an introduction email to the correct person to get her added, I think that would probably be helpful for CFS. Will this have a side effect on? Sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, I know that, I mean, I took over about 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, and we still are using the same login to the NIPSCO site that was here prior to me. I had tried to get my own, and it's not, the direct communication line really isn't there. I wouldn't even know who to really refer her to, because we tried to get a new login for North Central and pretty much were told, use the one that you got as long as it works. So I will try to ask some questions and see if I can get some info for her, but right now I don't know where to go with that.
Okay, that's helpful to hear. Thank you for that, Amanda. And like I said, I do have a discussion with NIPSCO on Friday about something completely different, but I'll try to bring this up because, we talked about, Lisa talked just an hour or so ago about the whole recycling of logins with ICDA Online and how that is a huge concern. And so that really is not an acceptable answer to me. So I will broach that subject with them. Lisa says we have to add letters to the end of our AEP batches to designate that they are different. I'm just learning all kinds of stuff today. Thank you for that, Lisa. Clearly, part of the discussion with vendors at this webinar is also going to be probably the difference between batch numbers and transmittal numbers, and the fact that batch numbers very well may repeat, but the transmittal numbers won't. I know that any change to that is going to be a big systemic change, and so it won't be right away, but I'm going to start to relay that groundwork at the vendor webinar. Rosa asked if this will have a side effect on the time transmittals need to be reconciled by 9:30. So I know Emily spoke to this earlier. That whole September 30th thing is a federal deadline. We cannot, that's a red line for us. And so whatever difficulty NIPSCO is having with that, I will add this to my agenda for Friday. We need to be able to have these closed out by 9:30. Not just that, but also, you guys need to get started on program year 2022. And I absolutely do not want to see any of this continuing to be a burden and rolling over into the new program year. I hear you, Pam. But we will. I will work to build some kind of understanding. Rosa in an earlier meeting shared that other agencies were having issues printing CARES Act notification letters. Is there a written process that I can have for when we start mailing out those letters to print? I kind of alluded to this yesterday. I did submit a ticket to Rowing, the DMS support email about the letter issue. I know that I did get a response, and I have not had the opportunity to open that yet because I was having computer update issues and I was working closely with the Indiana Office of Technology on Monday afternoon. And I have been pretty much spent my mornings in multiple meetings and then been in here all day for Tuesday and Wednesday. So that is actually first thing on my agenda for tomorrow is to get the update on that. So unless Brad has anything that he's aware of with this and wants to speak to, otherwise I will check the status of my ticket tomorrow morning.
Yeah, as I recall, I think your ticket that came in had something to do with whether or not we could reset all of the notification letters for the applications that had CARES Act funds added to reprint as a batch. And my answer is yes, we can do that. And then, but you had a secondary question that said there's some agencies that would like to do emails instead.
Yes, so we would need 2 separate lists.
Right. So then my response back to that was, if we're going to do that, I need to know which agencies want to do that ahead of time.
Okay.
Because I would only reset the batch for ones that don't haven't opted into emails. So you would
Makes
print
sense.
those and not print both. And then we could get you a list with the email address, application key, benefit amount, whatever, in an Excel file for you to use for a mailing or something like that separately.
Makes sense. All right, so general announcement to everyone on the call right now, and then I will get to Ingrid's question. So anyone who is in an agency who would like to, so Rowing is going to reset flags, reset the notification sent flags for all notification letters so that you can reprint those notification letters. However, if any agency wants to send out emails to those who have supplied an email address and have opted in, let us know, because then he can not reset the flags on those, so you're not doing double notifications and still spending the money on postage and spending the time on preparing those letters.
Yeah, I would suggest everybody tells you a yes or no so we don't miss anybody.
Yeah. So please email those to the LIHEAP inbox. I will create a spreadsheet to make sure I get an answer from everybody. And then and just for clarification, those email lists would come in 2 separate lists. One would be for people who had previously received CARES Act, and so they got the larger benefit this time around, the 230 or 240 or whatever it was. And the other list would be those who had not previously gotten CARES Act, and so they were only eligible for the 150 or 100, sorry. And that is so that you can also attach the appropriate explanatory letter using that language that I sent out to everybody. So yes, Sam and I will be checking the IHC or the IHCDA, the LIHEAP inbox on that, and I'll build a spreadsheet first thing in the morning so that we can track that, and Brad, get you an answer as soon as we have an answer from everybody.
Great.
All right, thanks for that. That takes something off my plate for first thing in the morning. So cool. Glad to have that out of the way. Ingrid, you had a question again.
Well, so I had a comment and a question. My question is, we can then print those letters, the client notification letters. We can print them as 2 separate batches, one for the $100 and one for the $220, correct?
Yeah, we give you 2 Excel files.
Okay, thank you. The other was in reference to AEP and them using the batches. I just was going to tell Lisa, I don't add a letter to it. They do it for me. So maybe just quit doing that. That's just me being a smart aleck. So.
All right. Lisa Ritterscam has been printing letters separately, and yeah, Lisa, I do apologize for that. Unfortunately, I had no idea that there was going to be an issue with the letters not being able to be printed out by batch. If I had the foresight to know that, I would have worked this out with Brad ahead of time. You know, that's on me. I was under a false impression of the logic. I thought the logic would be that because there was a new benefit there, that would reset that flag automatically. I did not know that the flag would not be reset automatically. So that was a blind spot for me. And I do apologize for that. And I hear you. I understand that's creating a lot of extra work and taking a lot of extra time.
Thank you for acknowledging. I understand that you didn't clearly. I mean,
Yeah,
you've done it. You know what that would be like. So
yeah,
I thank you, and
unfortunately,
we're gonna get it done, but because pretty soon we're gonna be mailing out another 3,000 applications. So
yep.
but thank you.
Yeah, it's one of those things I didn't know what I didn't know, unfortunately. So, all right, and I see that Julie has a question, and then she said to cancel the question. Laura says, just to clarify, we're not able to print out the CARES Act notification by batch. Not yet. You will be soon. We just want to know first from every agency, do you intend to email those who you can email instead of printing and mailing? You know, it would save money and so much time and energy. So I would definitely recommend, you know, everyone to take advantage of that if you can. But you know, if you're not in a place to do that, then just let us know with the LIHEAP inbox. Once we have a response from everybody, we will advise Brad, and Brad and his team will work their magic that they do. And then we will let everyone know once they're ready to go. All right, we've got 11 minutes left. It's been I don't know about for you guys. For me, it's been a long 2 days. I'm not used to talking this much. And I know we went like 15 or 20 minutes over yesterday. Chat has quieted down. No one has their hands up. Does anyone else have any further questions? Any further comments? Any further heckles for me? I can take heckles. I make a motion that we adjourn 11 minutes early.
I second.
All in favor?
Yeehaw.
Hey,
Thank you for all of this information.
yeah, and I just want to remind everyone, so I will be sending out slide packs, I think tomorrow. I'll send out the slide decks. Tomorrow I'll be sending recordings out to the marketing communications team so that they can get those uploaded to YouTube and provide me with links that I can then post on our webpage and also send to all of you. Probably look for those to be early next week by the time Mac gets done all that they need to do to make that happen. Also tomorrow, in addition to sending out the slide decks and the updated claims requirements sheet that Roxanne has so graciously developed, I will be sending out the invitation for the general Q&A session. We're going to have a 1 hour long general Q&A session next Tuesday, the 31st at 2 p.m. So it will immediately precede the network listening session call. And that's going to be, the purpose of that is to answer any questions that you have after you've had a chance to really dig into the manual, you know, review the slide decks, let all the training that we've had over the past 2 days really sink in and digest. You know, we want to be able to hear your questions and either answer them if we're able to answer them right away, or think about them, regroup, and come back with an informed answer if it's not something that we're able to answer right away. This was a huge investment in time from all of you at a time when we are all dealing with thousands of CARES Act claims and all these transmittals. And I want to say that I really, really appreciate and do not take for granted just your time that you've been so gracious and generous with. And the level of engagement that I've seen. You know, so some parts were contentious, and I love seeing that passion come out in everyone. I love seeing how much everyone cares, and how much everyone believes in this. I see that Ingrid asked if I would want questions ahead of time. Yeah, if you want to kick us some questions that you know you're going to have, that would be helpful. But if not, you know, that's why we're having the session, and or as Lane says, just pop them on me you know, on the day. But yeah, you know, I'm flexible. If you know that you have questions, especially if they're more in depth, it might be helpful to provide those in advance, but that's not a requirement at all. But once again, just, you know, I love seeing how engaged and invested everyone is. This has really been heartening. You know, it's been a difficult couple of years to be in this position, and you know, working with you guys is definitely a privilege that I appreciate. So thank you for everything you do. Thank you for your time these past 2 days, and thank you for all your questions. And go forth and have a wonderful rest of your day and week. And good luck for program year 2022. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.